Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to explore Fort Snelling State Park.
When you pull into the parking lot, you'll take a look, and this is the Mendota Bridge. It's so beautiful. Today we're going to walk Pike Island, and this is Buddy, and he's going to be our tour guide. Pike Island is at the confluence of the Mississippi and the Minnesota rivers in the southwestern part of St. Paul, Minnesota. This beautiful island is managed as part of Fort Snelling State Park and is within the Mississippi National River and Recreation Area. Look at the work that these beavers have done here. This is all over the park so far that I've seen. One interesting fact about Pike Island, and we'll get into more as we go, but Pike Island, there is no bikes allowed on Pike Island at all. It's only for walking and picnicking and enjoying the trails. We just barely got onto the trail, and look, there is a white-tailed deer waiting for us. Now, this is our first time walking Pike Island, and it is so beautiful. And by the way, that's Buddy. And what's funny about Buddy is, even though he's supposed to be a water dog, yeah, he doesn't like getting his feet wet. For centuries, the Dakota people have considered the confluence area of the Mississippi and the Minnesota rivers to be a sacred place. Vidote, which means where two waters come together, the Two Bluffs area was considered a place of creation where the earth gave rise to the first Dakota men and women. So what we're looking here right now is the beautiful Mississippi River. Buddy does not get wet, and yet, look, he instantly went and was having all kinds of fun and splish-splashing around. When we were here, we even saw a couple eagles flying over, and eagles have always meant something extremely special to me. In September of 1805, the island was part of a 100,000-acre land purchase from the Sioux Indians by Zebulon Pike. Pike's purchase was later to become Fort Snelling, Minneapolis, and St. Paul. The government wanted to build a fort to protect American interests in the fur trade in the region, and Pike negotiated the treaty. Pike valued the land at $200,000, but the U.S. Senate later agreed to pay only $2,000. In 1819, Colonel Henry Leavenworth invited Jean the Baptiste Faribault, a French Canadian, and his family to settle on Pike Island near the new fort to help promote the fur trade. An 1820 treaty gave ownership of Pike Island to Elizabeth Perliger Faribault, a Dakota Indian and wife of Jean-Baptiste Faribault. The 6-week Dakota War of 1862 resulted in the deaths of hundreds of settlers and Native Americans. After the conflict, more than 400 Dakotas were tried and 302 men condemned to be executed at Mankato, Minnesota. President Lincoln eventually commuted the sentences of all 38 Dakota who were hanged in a mass execution on December 26, 1862. During this time, more than 1,600 Dakota women, children, and old men were held in an intern camp on Pike Island under the cannons of Fort Snelling. Winter living conditions were harsh, with little food and no shelter, and cholera struck the camp, killing more than 300. In May of 1863, the survivors were forced aboard steamships and relocated to Crow Creek in the southeastern Dakota Territory. A place stricken by drought at the time, the survivors of Crow Creek were moved 3 years later to Santee Sioux Reservation in Nebraska. So as I was wandering the park and looking at all the beauty, I couldn't help but to think about those who have lost their lives on Pike Island as well. It is a beautiful place, and I am so lucky to have it within 20 minutes of home. And there, right there, is a picture of the backside of the fort, of Fort Snelling. And I am so happy that you could join Buddy and I on this excursion, and I could show you a little bit of Fort Snelling.